because sometimes I have to go fix things. That puts us up there. And now we are live on Spreaker.
You are listening to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign. KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
Hi.
All right, so that's enough of that on these sides. That'll still stream out to the radio side of the 65 for the moment. But we are currently up on, let me double check. Currently up on YouTube, Rumble, X, and Facebook as of now. And Live 365 just picked us up too. So
it's Twitter.
I promised everybody once they actually changed the domain name, I would start calling it by its actual name.
I refuse.
It's up to, I'm not judging you. I'm just saying that's why I started.
I'm judging you.
That's all right. I've noticed most of the people that still call it Twitter are the ones that are monetized. So maybe I should keep calling it Twitter. Oh, anyway. All right. So we are 3 minutes from the intro. I'm going to go ahead and start pushing out the other feed because I haven't yet. I guess I could do it from my phone. Probably be easier to do it from my phone. I was so mad that I was late to that little quicksand thing, but I still had to weigh in. I was like, I feel like I could have gotten some impressions off of that if I had gotten in on it earlier.
What's that?
The lady that got caught in quicksand.
Oh yeah.
I was so late to that party, but I still had to weigh in. I was like, oh come on, man. Quicksand was on every TV show when we were growing up. TV Land saves lives.
But you see, but that's the beauty of it is that you could actually write a Twitchy about it and then monetize it that way.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure somebody else already grabbed it, but I'll look later. If not, I'm going to pick it up.
Then you got to use mine.
Oh, I will. Because
you have to.
You're the one that showed it to me, so of course I'm going to use yours. All right, so we do have people starting to come in on the stream. So for those of you joining us right now, we are pretty much everywhere. So if you're listening to us on one of the streaming platforms, like probably Twitter, X, Jitter, whatever the hell you guys want to call it these days, we are about a minute and a half from the intro. So just hang out with us for a bit. You will hear some banter and some discussion during breaks. Not really any way to help that unless we just mute everything and then talk to each other on the phone, and that would be boring for you guys too. So, meh.
Yeah, you just have dead air, and nobody wants that.
Nobody wants.
I'm going to do a puppet show.
Nobody wants dead air. I mean, it could be worse. Mickey was trying to do a helicopter last night, which is why we decided we weren't taking a break.
Hang on. Mickey was what now?
Mickey was trying to do a helicopter last night, which is why we just
still don't hear you.
Break. You broke something again.
I touched nothing.
Did you actually hear me that time or no? I'm confused. Guess not. Oh. May have to call you on Skype. I just don't know if they will hear you if we do Skype. So that might, well, actually that's an app, so that should work. Can you hear me now? I'm guessing you cannot hear me now. I don't know why this thing works so well most of the time, and then occasionally there's just moments where it says no. But since this is an app, everybody should still be able to hear you over here. So I think we're fixing to give up and go old school. Oh, yeah, I guess it would work. Hang on. Let's try this while we're figuring everything else out. So, pardon me for a moment while I try to reconnect with my co-host who suddenly can't hear me. Pardon the noise. It's loud. Can you hear me over here? Is the question. I'm guessing you can't hear me over here either, so it's something going on with your side. All right. Well, we're going to load some more commercials. Pardon us while we figure out our technical difficulties because the radio side is hearing nothing but dead air right now. So. Let's see if you're which I don't know where you're typing at. All right, so now we go. I need settings. Bluetooth. Roadcaster. Unmuted. Okay, I really need the pop-ups to stop. I hate that when I'm in a hurry. Pardon me a moment while I connect with my co-host.
Yo.
All right, so we're going to do this while you're figuring shit out because they can hear you.
Okay, that's bizarre. Yeah, this is weird. I just when we went live, my headphones went dead. My computer's not seeing them at all.
All right. So hopefully you can get, I mean, I have like 87% battery, so we should be good for a while. And if I need to on one of the breaks, I can go grab my charger, but hopefully you can get it sorted out while we get things spun up here. Cause I loaded some extra commercials because the radio side was hearing dead air for like a minute and I was like panicking. So, and then, yeah, I realized it had to be something on your side when Skype couldn't hear me, when you couldn't hear me on Skype either. So it wasn't on the other thing. So
anyway. Yeah, it's like I said, my computer just completely lost. Anyway. Yeah, I'm going to restart real quick.
All right. Yeah. I mean, you might as well do that because you're on a different connection now. So just do whatever you got to do.
Okay.
Because we can still do this anyway. Fuck it. We're doing it live.
Yeah. Hang on a sec.
Bring the volume down a little bit while you're doing whatever you're doing. So that was loud, wherever that was. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. All right.
So I can exist like this for a minute. That's right. Surprisingly good.
Yeah, I mean it's a little more muffled than it normally would be, but you're actually Bluetoothed into the Roadcaster right now. So
okay. And all my notes are gone.
Oh no!
I'm restarting my computer.
That's all right.
Oh no, the notes.
I mean, I'm sure. Hopefully they're saved somewhere.
Yeah.
Anyway, all right. So Yeah, we have people starting to show up on the X feed. They're like, "What the fuck is this shit show? Welcome to live radio."
Right. Yeah, that's amazing. The second we went live, my headphones went in. Another topic that they don't want us discussing.
Apparently. Hey, we have somebody watching on YouTube too, so I should probably say hello.
Oh, interesting.
All right, so I'm going to go ahead and bring the sound up so I
So
don't
do
miss
we
the
want to start
transition.
talking? Do we want to start with what Nibiru is first before we start talking about the Anunnaki and everything?
Yeah. Hang on. Let me
Okay.
do one thing first though, so everybody can hear it.
The following program contains coarse language and adult themes. Listener discretion is advised.
What's that in the corner? It's too dark to see.
And welcome into Juxtaposition, ladies and gentlemen, our every 2-week foray into the weird, unusual, the unexplainable, now at trying to be a 2-hour format. We had a technology gremlin there for a little bit, so the folks listening on the streaming side, on the radio side, were like, dead air, repeating commercials, disclaimer twice, what the hell? Anyway, but we're here, we're live, and those of you that are listening on the other streaming services got to hear us figure out all the gremlins, because I don't have any way to shut that part of it up. But we're here, we're live, and my co-host is with me while we keep trying to figure out the technological issues.
Sure.
So good evening, Mr. Packard, sir. How are you?
You know, it's always when we try to do something new that whoever they are, my new theory is that they is the bureaucracy, but just give us gremlins. I mean, it's my headphones were working absolutely perfectly right until you went live, and now my computer doesn't detect them at all. I'm still trying to bring them back up, but yeah, good times. How you doing? What's going on with Rick? What's going on with Rick's world?
Well, I fell down a bit. So the funny thing is, because we had discussed doing an anthology for our first 2-hour episode, and then I had failed to finish fleshing that one out because the last couple of weeks have been nuts. So then you were like, "So we're gonna finish fleshing this one out, or we could talk about this." And I was just about to text you and say, "I think we should talk about this," because I fell down a bit of a rabbit hole with it. But so yeah, I mean, life in my world has been a little weird. We're getting a lot of transitions done here and moving into more of not just a streaming audio format, but more of kind of a video format, and testing out a few other things. And right now we are officially live in about 7 places. And then by morning, it'll be on pretty much every podcatcher site known to man, because we're slowly trying to take over the world. But other than that, but yeah. So,
KRN, are your benevolent dictators
I mean, we can't be any worse than the guy that's in there right now. I mean, can we really?
trying to take the world over just to leave you alone?
And that's pretty much.
Yeah. So if I seem muddled or my audio isn't great, that's because we're doing this over the phone right now. I mean, technology is fantastic, and we can actually do this over the phone, like they used to. Yeah, just having to default back to that method is a little bizarre for me.
You should have just when I introduced you, you should have said long time listener, first time caller. Would have been awesome.
Yeah. Okay. From the wild card line.
Oh, but yeah. So anyway, we're going to be talking
For you
about
young kids, there used to be a show called Art Bell Coast to Coast.
yeah, and then it became George Norrie Coast to Coast, and nobody gave a shit anymore. Oh wait, did I say that out loud? My bad. My bad. You know, and you know, it's not necessarily anything against George Norrie, I guess. I mean, it's just once you've had somebody that is as awesome as Art Bell, it's just not the same. I have a feeling
Yeah.
that poor Ryan Seacrest is about to find out the same thing about Wheel of Fortune because
Oh, God, yeah. Is that who's got tapped to pick? I saw Pat say Jack retired, but I didn't.
yes, Ryan
Hmm.
Seacrest is literally taking the wheel starting next week officially, and I don't think it's gonna go well. I mean, first of all, he's even shorter than Pat Sajak, and Pat Sajak wasn't that tall. That'll be a little weird, but anyway. So yeah,
So I also downside don't have a easy mute button too when I'm coughing. My allergies are absolutely kicking my ass. But anyway, enough about my problems.
all right. So I'm gonna mute you on the phone for a second because I see that you've tried to rejoin. So I'm gonna see if everything works now. So hang on. All right. Can you hear me, sir? Guessing that would be a no. All right. So
Yeah.
I'm guessing you cannot hear me on that side still. So we're back on the phone.
No, I cannot hear you on that side. So we're gonna have to do this with phone while I figure out what the actual fuck is going on.
The system's like cans. You don't need any cans, motherfucker. Anyway.
Well, yeah, I mean that's just it. I mean, like I said, I mean my cans have always worked awesome. No failure with the, you know, I've got the Ars Technica 1200X, I think, and I absolutely love them. I'd have to double check them all of them, but they've always been great. It's just I think it's on the software side because Windows isn't seeing them. The Focusrite software isn't seeing it. Nothing's seeing my headphones, and it's a brand new cable too, so it's not like I've got anything split or bound up. And this cable's been working for a couple months. So anyway, we'll just do what we always do and make it happen.
We're gonna get her done one way or the other because we always do.
Yeah.
I may actually mess with the processing side a little bit and see if I can clean you up just a little bit on the next break.
I don't need to
But
keep the microphone in my face anymore.
I would, you know, I wonder, can you, because you're open, try talking through your microphone. I have an idea.
Okay, let's try that.
Because I could always mute the output on the phone, and you should still be able to hear. If it works.
So let's see. I should be coming through Restream right now.
It doesn't show anything though.
Okay, let me check it. Anyway, so you know, let's do this quietly and just keep trying to fuck the shit.
Sure, not a
while
problem.
we're doing
Anyway,
the show. We're not here to yeah.
we're not here to fix gremlins. We're here to do a show. So we'll just move into the show and pretend that nothing's broken. So
Right.
again, we're going to be talking about Planet X, Nibiru, the Anunnaki, and there's a lot to unpack there. So we're going to kind of start from the beginning. So
Yeah, so the first thing we really need to talk about is what actually is Nibiru, Planet 12, Planet X, whatever you want to. The mysterious theoretical planet out there on the fringes of the solar system.
well, yeah. So I guess one of the easiest ways to put it is there is supposedly a planet on a weird elliptical style orbit that spends a lot of its orbit well outside of the normal parts of our solar system, and apparently has a 36 as far as Earth standard 3,600 year rotation. So
Right.
basically, it takes 3,600 years to completely orbit the sun, and during its orbit, because it's kind of an elliptical pattern, there are times when it is closer to Earth, and then it spends a lot of its time further away.
Way out in the Kuiper Belt, it is a rather large. The influences that it's said to have on other Kuiper Belt objects and other Plutoids thanking Neil deGrasse Tyson for downgrading the planet and making all the kids cry. It would be the fifth largest planet in the solar system, behind Jupiter, Saturn, Erectum, and Neptune. And about 5,000 times the size of the mass of Pluto. And it would be the fifth largest planet in the solar system. The same way that they found Neptune, by the way that it was affecting the orbit of Uranus, is kind of how they're narrowing down where this alleged planet might be, and in its effect of other larger Kuiper Belt objects, and the dwarf planets out there. And what's interesting is that it has what's called an anti-perihelion orbit, which is, when they put into the model, is the only way that, because they say, well, if these planets, if this planet was out there, then eventually these, small Plutoids would be careening into it. And the way that once they plugged in this particular style of orbit, it showed how they wouldn't actually do that, how the gravitational pull from other planets and planetoids and just the general orbit around the sun would cause them to constantly miss each other. And that's when all of a sudden it's like, hey, this might work and this might actually be out there.
Well, yeah, I mean, the interesting thing about this, and this is part of when I said there's a lot to unpack. So one of the most interesting things is modern society didn't even realize the setup of the solar system, as far as the number of planets, etc., really until we started sending probes out into space. Now, one of the most interesting things is during one of the first probe flights, they had discovered that Saturn and Uranus and Neptune and all those planets that are further out than we are looked almost exactly like the Sumerians had depicted them thousands of years ago. So that's part of what sparked this whole idea about Nibiru, because everybody started looking and they're like, well, how did they know what these things look like? How did they get?
Yeah, they referred to. Well, even just their basic existence. I mean, yeah, you could see Jupiter and Saturn, from Earth, and you listen how much later that you realize, okay, they have a couple moons too. But yeah, I mean, we're talking about. I mean, at the time Neptune was discovered, they were still talking about canals on Mars. I mean, that's how primitive astronomy was the early 20th century. But when you get back into Mesopotamian civilizations, specifically Sumer, they had a pretty good handle on it.
I mean, well, it's not really that they had a pretty good handle on it. They actually seemed to have, for the time, had an amazing handle on it. And this kind of comes back to so many other things that you and I have talked about before, about the fact that there are so many commonalities between ancient cultures, that it doesn't make any sense for there not to have been some sort of influencing factor. And history even supports this, because if you look at the Latin language is the base for several different languages that still exist today. There's actual Italian, which is a direct offshoot of the original Latin. Then you have French, which is still an offshoot, even if they do some weird things with their conjunctions, etc., which makes zero sense to me. Then you have Spanish. That is another one that is a direct offshoot of the original parent Latin language. So the reason that Nibiru became so important, and the reason that Planet X and its potential existence became so important, is because people were realizing that by looking backwards with the information that we already had, with the information that we just gained, we realized that they knew things that we didn't thousands of years ago. And we started trying to figure out how and why they knew these things that we didn't know until recently, thousands of years ago. So that's what started sparking everybody's curiosity about this whole Planet X, Nibiru thing, and the Anunnaki and everything else, because they were like, well, if they're right about these, and they were, what else are they right about?
It's kind of like, and I bring this up often, but it's kind of like how every school kid before the 70s instinctively knew, looking at the west coast of Africa and how well that it fit into the Caribbean. But plate tectonics was a joke until the mid-60s. It was just considered fringe science. It's one of those things like, you go way back, and while we've technologically progressed and everything, and we've talked about it a lot too, the actual regression that occurred for several thousand years before we come back into I'm going to heavily air quote this age of enlightenment. Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's, the simpler things, the simpler things know better.
Well, I mean, I don't even necessarily know if it's as easy to say simpler knows better, because it kind of becomes apparent that these people had some sort of an influence, maybe outside of what we knew about at the time, that helped them understand things so much better than they did. And there is a widespread theory now that their influence actually comes from that planet Nibiru. And one of the weirdest things that and I fell down a bit of a rabbit hole about this today. One of the weirdest things for me is thinking about it from that perspective, because you would think, I mean, we see it here all the time. Life evolves based on the planet that it's on. So imagine if you're living on a planet where 1 year is 3,600 of our years. How much longer do they live? Even if they have an 80, 90-year lifespan, if you multiply that by 3,600, how long is that?
Yeah, I mean, it all bases, obviously on their biology. I mean, because, yeah, I mean, they may just live a tenth of a year too. But yeah, if you want to look at it as, especially in the biblical text where, they talk about the Nephilim, and their years be marked 120, then yeah, if that's, if it is, following that out where the Nephilim were, possibly from Nibiru, then yeah, 120 times 3,600, that's, almost 400,000 years. It's over 400,000 years.
Yeah, I mean,
that would be considered a god.
Yeah, that is a long time. 400,000 years is a long time to be alive. But so,
to put that in perspective, we have had 3 ice ages in the last 400,000 years.
So the other weird thing that I found when I fell down this particular rabbit hole is finding cuneiform in Sumaria that referenced Nibiru, which was the name they gave the planet. We call it Planet X. I don't know why, but in the cuneiform, it was always represented in the pattern of a cross, which I found rather interesting.
Well, what I found interesting about that too, when I was reading the material that we put up today, is that not only just being the pattern of the cross, but all of the planetoids, especially Pluto and the other smaller ones, they're called Neptune crossers. That's because they cross the orbit in their elliptical path around the sun. So for that too, that jumped out at me, is that okay? So granted, their meaning of the cross is not the meaning of our meaning of the cross. I get it. I'm just saying those two words click together on me pretty strongly while going through this.
Well, yeah. So, but I mean, the thing about it is, this is kind of going into the same thing, because is this something that evolved over time, and what they meant one way, we took another. Just like, I mean, look at it this way. There is one of the art form, or one of the art pieces that was put out during the time of the moon landing, was an actual eagle landing on the moon. Now, we didn't ever send an eagle to the moon, but imagine somebody looking at that 3, 4, 5,000 years later, and imagine what they're going to think. So it's just again, is this whole idea that we are just starting to come to terms with, is that everything that we think we know about heaven and gods and everything else originated from this planet that only comes into our realm of existence basically well enough for us to know that it exists about every 3,600 years. So it's been an interesting little rabbit hole for me.
Oh, sure. Well, sure. And if you've read Saccharine Ascension, and starting with his 12th Planet series, is that he the correlation of what we've had, was referred to, what we often reference on the show, is the Zoroastrian religions. Those who have a mighty fight between good and evil. Abraham himself, he came from the Sumerian Mesopotamian region, and and Abraham's God, Jehovah, was a God of war and thunder. Now, what that's translated into in the Anunnaki names, I'm not sure. Probably Anu, but it was, and that's the religion that came down to us, eventually making its way into Christianity and the rest. But he is from this area too. So for the early proto-Christian mythos, a lot of the Anunnaki stories come from that, or are scarily similar enough to be almost derivative.
Well, I mean, and you also have to think about, where did the Code of Hammurabi come from?
Yeah, I mean, when you have a civilization that was, Sumer was around for 2,400 years. I mean, that's mind-boggling to think about. I mean, that would be like a civilization existing from before Christ to now, and keeping contemporary and solid and stable all the way through. So eventually, yeah, they're going to come up with a codification of laws. But still, as a popular trope in sci-fi is that, the primitive screwheads got their religion and their laws from a time traveler, an alien, or whatever. Tropes are a trope for a reason.
I mean, well, I mean, and I know this. I mean, this ties into kind of what we're talking about tonight, but it's kind of an ancillary thing. But how many different things have we talked about the origin of the species? Whether it's that we actually evolved on Mars and then eventually came here when Mars was not sustainable anymore. Whether it was, the moon is actually a spaceship. I mean, there are so many different ideas of how man became on the planet Earth, all the way back from, ancient scriptures, the Bible, the Torah, the Quran, all of them. They all have origin stories. Now, those three are fairly similar, but you also have.
Yeah, I got to interrupt real quick. I got a correction from chat, and you're right, Stephen. It was Chaldeans, not the Sumerians.
You're right.
City of Ur, but Crescent civilization. I was wrong, but not by much. Keep going. I'm sorry.
We were in the ballpark. Damn it, we were in the ballpark. But yeah, no, I'm just saying that, just when you start going back and you start looking at all of the different stories about how we potentially came to be on this planet, and there are so many different variations, but there are 3 different major religions that all basically have the same tenet, which is that we were created by someone and that there's a heaven. But Sumerians looked at heaven differently. To them, they viewed the planet that comes in view about every 3,600 years as where the gods came from. So could this also be one of the same things that we all thought for a while? I mean, everybody forgets that in the original Hebrew scriptures, reincarnation was a thing.
That was.
I mean, and it's even mirrored in the New Testament, because at one point, this is after John the Baptist has been beheaded and everything else, and so Jesus asked, "Who do some say that I am?" Well, some say that you're John the Baptist. How could that be possible if they didn't believe in reincarnation? But that's just it. There are so many different things that man has done to take religion and make it a controlling object, which is why I don't personally embrace or ascribe to any particular religion. I have a faith, but my faith is also evolving, much like science. The more information I get, the more my faith changes, because I know the truth is out there somewhere. But even the Bible says everything that we see, we see through a glass darkly right now, and someday we'll see the whole picture. So how much of this is about control? But some of the scariest things about this Planet X, Nibiru story and everything else is something we're going to get to on the other side of the break, because we're actually about due for one. Because we haven't even touched on if these people did create us, why it is that they created us. We may get into that in a little bit later. I know we've got other stuff we want to talk about. I'm hoping we can keep things going here. And I guess I'm going to go grab a charger while we're on break so I don't lose you. So,
I better do that too. Since we're going to be doing this live on the phone, I better plug in.
The funny thing is, and you probably don't know this because you left the chat when you restarted. I was joking because Danny had said hello to you, and I was joking that you were restringing your tin cans and we would be back momentarily. I'm not sure. I think
Here we are.
I think I may have jinxed this. I'm just saying. All right, so we are going to take a quick break. We're just going to go out with the intro because I didn't queue anything else up because I got to go get a charger before my phone dies. So we'll see you guys back here in a couple minutes. For those of you listening on the streams, you're just going to hear kind of nothing for a minute, but I'll be right back. I guess
An occasional witty dance.
All right, folks, we are in break. We'll be back in probably about 4. I'm going to pull the other commercials, but for right now, you guys aren't going to be hearing much because I got to go grab a charger before I lose him. Hang tight.
Okay. BFK a second.
Okay, I'm back, and you are plugged into a charger now, so we should be good. And
I've got 84%. I should be good. I just realized that my charger is in my work truck.
nice. Yeah, unfortunately,
Because somebody.
yeah,
Yes.
I was gonna say, unfortunately, my battery life sucks because I kept my phone on the charger too long. So now it's like, oh, you don't have me plugged in, so you're gonna get 30 minutes of battery life. Which it doesn't usually matter because normally if I'm in the car or something, I have a charger cable. But yeah, I looked down and I was like at 87% when we started the call, and I was at 44. I was like, I need to take a break and get a charger. Oh, so much fun. So little time.
Yeah. So I'm going to have to get the Restream app for my phone in case we have to do this for a while.
That's not a bad idea.
Yeah, why not?
All right. So
I do like that you were able to Bluetooth me in. That's quite cool.
yeah, it's actually one of the reasons I'm really digging this investment because there's just so many things that I can do now. I really should have pulled the trigger on this a long time ago. All right, we're coming back.
Just say Jeff was right.
And welcome back to the program, ladies and gentlemen. First break of hour one. That's right, because now Juxtaposition is 2 hours of fun on Saturday nights. I'm here with my co-host, Ordy Packard, who is Amish and is currently having to use tin can and string to do the show.
I'm doing it old school.
Anyway, we're here, we're live, and because we talked about this on the break, I might as well say it now. Jeff was right. I should have bought this board and shit a long time ago. I'm just saying. I don't even think he's in chat to hear it, but he'll hear it eventually, and then I'll hear about it.
Oh, he's in chat.
Oh, I hadn't seen him yet. Anyway.
Oh, look, everything but restream for the Android. Cool. Anyway, so
I think you can log in through your phone on the browser.
yeah, that's probably. We'll try that during the next break. So I don't think. Okay, so talking about the Anunnaki and the Nephilim, and you can't have this conversation about Nibiru or even Planet X without two very distinct names coming up of it. I mentioned one earlier, before the break, Zachariah Sitchin. And I mean, he wrote books on the topic. And while it's often said, yeah, but he based all of his theories off of mistranslated text. Maybe, but the other name, and this was one who, again, going back to the Coast to Coast AM days, Nancy Leader from Zeta Talk. She made an absolute career out of doom posting about Nibiru. And I mean, everything from the Hale Bopp story was manufactured to distract people from becoming Planet X to 2012 long count Mayan calendar. Everything led to Nibiru and the return of the Anunnaki with her. And I mean, everything from the Hale Bopp story was manufactured. Did I lose you again?
No, I'm still here. You were kind of cutting out for a second. But...
Okay, yeah, it's because I'm used to having my microphone in front of me and not leaning over my phone to talk. So I was kind of bobbing and weaving. Anyway. So yeah, she really brought this into the forefront. And while Ancient Aliens tries to distance themselves from her a little bit, and in using George, she's really the one who brought this whole thing to the forefront.
I mean, yeah,
mainstream ones.
Yeah, I mean, she was one of the pioneers of it. I mean, now granted, none of these people, nobody would really know who they were without Art Bell, but she was still one of the people that that was one of the ones that said, "Hey, this stuff is, this stuff matters." But it's just interesting to me to think about, going back to what we were talking about in the first part of the show, to think about even with as far as our technology has supposedly come, these people from thousands of years ago seem to have known more about the solar system than we did, because everybody seems to forget that during, the Dark Ages to the beginning of the Renaissance, we were back to thinking the world was flat again.
Right.
I mean, there are people that still think the world is flat. There are entire Facebook pages about people who think the world is flat, who think that anytime...
there's flat earthers all around the globe.
I saw that T-shirt once, and it was a flat earther wearing it, and I just about died. I was like,
Well, it was actually a tweet from the Flat Earth Society too.
Well, yeah,
yeah.
But yeah, I'm just like.
But hang on, okay. So chat, get ready to drink. There's also that great line from Stargate SG-1. It wasn't called the Dark Ages because it was dark.
Yeah. Damn it! I really have to mix together that whole Stargate thing, and with I picked a really bad day to quit drinking thing. I really have to do that. I keep forgetting to do.
But it wasn't the first of. It wasn't the first of our Dark Ages. It's again going. Before we get into Sitchin and Leader, you got to go back to in the Sumerian texts in their religion, there was a great nuclear holocaust by the Anunnaki who remained behind and basically made us their genetic experiment. This is where I think we were leading into before the break, and I kind of jumped ahead.
No, you're fine. But yeah, I was going to
Okay.
steer us back to this anyway, because this is another thing that kind of, to me, proves that there was some sort of overarching influence during that time. Because if you look into the Hindu religion, they actually discuss the very thing that you had just talked about. That there was a giant battle between what appeared to be flying ships of some kind, and they described him in the best ways that they could. But it actually describes a giant war and massive explosions happening in space and all around and everything else. And I'm just like, this is just another thing to me that just proves that, I mean, legends are legends for a reason. They usually start with at least a kernel of truth. Now, how true?
Yeah, and that's like I said earlier. Tropes in sci-fi. Tropes come from somewhere. Whether it's in sci-fi sitcom, procedural cop shows, they all have a root, a beginning where it wasn't fiction, allegedly.
Allegedly. But yeah, no, I mean this whole you're the whole this isn't our first dark age. I mean, hell, even the Bible describes what would be considered a dark age when it describes the flood. I mean, what would that be considered? The entire planet was wiped out and basically everything had to be repopulated. So even if that story is remotely accurate, that would have counted as a dark age. Then you have the whole Anunnaki war. And this, like I said before we went to break, one of the scariest things about the whole Anunnaki and Nibiru thing, and it would explain something because it's always been kind of weird to me that we have this fascination with gold. But apparently they created us to mine gold because they needed it.
Yeah, there's something wrong with their atmosphere, or it. And it's kind of funny is that for those of you like, hey, I've seen this movie. It's Battlefield Earth. Yeah, because L. Ron Hubbard, he borrowed before Dianetics. He borrowed, and I'm not going to say the other things so that way we don't get killed by lawyers. He was kind of a very derivative sci-fi author, and while some of his stuff isn't bad, Battlefield Earth, the movie, is worse than the book. Absolutely, but this is what it was based off of. So, and that was, we were genetically modified up from apes to be able to understand and be subverted.
So, and this is not something that I planned on bringing up, but it's just kind of an epiphany that I had, kind of tying into the whole us really liking gold thing. It would also explain our desire to enslave other people.
Well, that too. I mean, yeah, it's, yeah. And I mean, that could very well be the root of it as well. I mean, it's, we just kind of mimic what we've seen in the way that a child will mimic, when they learn a new swear from an adult and they just say it repeatedly in public. We pick up the bad behavior of our instructors. And the interesting thing is that gold, while very malleable and has a wide variety of uses, I mean, as far as ornamentation, and it's because it is it is an element. You can't, you can't render it down and then, you hit, no matter how much you hammer it, it will remain gold. Really didn't become valuable to us until the space age and computer technology. I mean, really valuable to the betterment of mankind rather than just what it is. It was just a barter commodity with a perceived value that nobody could really put their finger on.
Yeah, but could that perceived value be because our creators saw it as something as valuable, and could them seeing it as something as valuable now be explained by us figuring out how useful it is now that we are trying to become spacefaring?
Dan Delaney made a good point in chat. That's where the theory falls apart, because there's much more gold in asteroids than than there is on the planet, and the gravity well is kind of a bitch.
I mean, sort of.
Unless unless they've mined most of it out there already. I mean, they've been around for a very long time.
I mean, again, if you think about it, then if they're now, and again, this is just speculation, but if their lifespan is tied to their orbit cycle, then you're talking about, for them, a year is 3,600 of our years. So that means
Right.
that I mean, you're talking about people that have literally been around for millennia. So there's a good chance
Right.
that they may have mined all of it already. Or it could also
Good.
be that, they view us the same way that certain people view illegal aliens. We're going to breed these fuckers because they're going to do the jobs we don't want to do.
Right.
I mean, I'm not trying to put too fine a point on it, but they may have just decided, hey, we don't want to do this anymore, so we're going to create a lesser life form and let them do it for us.
Sure.
I mean,
Yeah, and
he's right about the asteroids, but he technically, it could just be that they may have decided. I mean, for all we know, they may have taken some of us to asteroids and had us do the fucking work, and we just never came back. I mean, there is literally the story of a guy that was in the Bible that basically got picked up by a spaceship. I'm just saying.
yeah,
So-
yeah. It's when we get out there, we're going to find out we weren't the first Belters.
Nice reference.
Thank you. If you haven't watched The Expanse, it's fantastic.
Yeah, except for that last half a season.
Well, yeah. Last season's always sucked.
It was
So-
it was so good though, and then they just went, yeah, we're gonna phone this part in because it's not doing what we thought it was gonna do.
Right. Well, sci-fi is expensive.
Dude, I mean, it is, but when you think about the number of cult followings that have been birthed through sci-fi, I mean, hell, how old is Stargate now? And people still talk about that shit to this day. Yeah,
I talk about it every day.
you got to drink again, Jack. Just saying.
So getting back to the Nephilim and the Anunnaki and the giants and it's again, you have to go back to the correlation between the Garden of Eden, the forbidden fruit, and the Mesopotamian tree of the Sumerian tree of life, how they all kind of have the same story written about, the same as all, the same evolution of the fall of man, and everybody says, well, the apple was an allegory for knowledge. And yeah, I mean, sure. But, the other thing, it wasn't an apple, it was a bunch of grapes. Where the apple came from is just, the Latin word for bad is malus, and the Latin word for apple is malum. So, yeah, that's just, again, bad translations. But
Malus Malum, that's funny.
yeah.
Oh, anyway.
So and is all of these stories about the fall of man, the Nephilim, they all still go back to the same correlation, the same root of, here is a creation myth where, the first line, God's created heaven and the earth. Well, that could very well be they just came from Nibiru.
Well, so and to me, that's kind of where the theory kind of falls apart a little bit, because the universe still had to come from somewhere. But
No, it didn't. We're gonna have to do a show on quantum gravity theory.
Okay, well, I guess we will. But
It's always there.
But one of the things that always fascinated me as Star Trek kind of became its own little universe, because it started as, most sci-fi before Star Trek was kid shows, and everybody knows that. Star Trek still had a bit of that. Roddenberry was really trying to get away from it and eventually managed to do that. But one of the best storylines that I think was ever brought out through Next Generation, other than the storylines through DS9, was the arc and about the episode where they talked about what they called, I believe they were called the progenitors. basically the species that came before everybody that seeded life throughout the galaxy.
Oh yeah, that was a TNG one.
Yeah,
That was the one with I remember that now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was TNG, and the character, the main character that was a descendant of theirs was played by the same lady that went ahead and that eventually would play the female shapeshifter on DS9.
Was that still on Jet?
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah,
I'll
it
go
was.
back and- Cool.
But yeah, so that's the other thing is, maybe they were the ones that, I mean, who knows if they did it here and they do have the ability to space travel, maybe they've done it elsewhere. I mean, maybe
Yeah.
maybe they have basically seeded life in other places. I mean, it's possible. I mean, I remember, and I think a lot of it had to do with Christian upbringing, etc. But I remember 70s, everybody assumed we were the only planet or only place you could find water anywhere in our solar system. Now we're finding out that's not true. There's water almost everywhere in one form or another. So that means another building block of life is possible. But one of the other things that I kind of wanted to get into that is tied into some of this stuff, and we'll get into it after the break, is some of the other things that we are starting to find out now that we have access to things like the Hubble telescope and the Webb telescope, and how a lot of other solar systems are set up and how ours seems to be different. But now they're starting to wonder if it's maybe not so different. But we'll get into that on the other side of the break because it's just about that time. Because we're doing,
Yeah, it's not the anomaly; it's the rule.
but yeah, we're doing 2 hours now, so we're gonna take.
Yeah, can you believe that we would be done with the show right about now? We would be saying, what have you been watching this week or something? So I'm already digging this 2-hour format because usually by now we're just getting into the meat of it and we've got to wrap them up. So, Delaney, thank you for the idea, and I'm a fan.
And on that note, folks, now hang on, I need to fix something so the folks on the stream can hear it too. Because since you're Bluetooth, I can't do what I normally do. Usually, if I'm playing stuff on the fly, I play it through my phone because I can Bluetooth my phone to it, and then everybody can hear it. But since we're not able to do that right now because you're on my phone, I got to do something else. So hang on just a second. This way,
I'm holding on to it.
everybody can hear what I'm about to play everywhere. All right. And we have music rights now, so I don't really care. But anyway, so kind of thought this might have been a little bit fitting. It's Space Cowboy from Steve Miller.
Okay, sure.
A little weird, but why not? All right, we're gonna take a quick break. When we come back, still got more on this topic, so stay tuned. You're listening to Juxtaposition live on KLRNradio.com. I'm Rick Robinson. He's Ordy, the Amish guy, currently actually doing his gig from what amounts to tin can and string.
Tin can and a string.
But we're still doing it anyway. We'll see you guys on the other side of the break.
I'm changing, so I'm keeping on top of every fat cat who walks through my door. I'm a space cowboy. Bet you weren't ready for that.
You are listening to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign.
All right, that's enough of that. I don't want to hear that in my ears for 5 minutes.
Hey, see if you can text me the link to the show. I'll see if I can get it to open up in the browser.
Sure. Hang on, I'll grab it. Actually, I think I already sent it to you in X.
Since I don't have Twitters on my phone.
Slacker.
No, I do that on purpose.
I know. You're still a slacker, though. I mean, we grew up in we grew up in the 70s and the 80s. Slacker was something we strived for.
Yeah. Professionally.
All right, so yeah, it's in X, so I should be able to just copy it from my in because I do have it in my phone. You're not going to let me copy it, are you? No, I don't want to join it. I want the link. Really? Cancel.
That's so weird. You and I got the same idea to do the same show to do the shows, this topic at the same time.
Trying to figure out how I can possibly text this to you, because anytime I drop it,
Try copy paste.
it doesn't let me. It just tries to bring me into it. I don't understand what is going on right now.
Wonder.
This is so weird. I don't know why it's doing that. Trying to figure out a way.
In the studio, can you get a clean link on an invite? You know, like send link like it was over an email or something,
I don't know.
rather than just trying to copy it out of.
I don't know if it'll let me do that.
X.
Let's find out. And I just realized I screwed up a second ago anyway, because I never even shared the screen. So the folks on the stream didn't get the music, but 365 and Spreaker did. Anyway.
Well, that's no good.
That's what happens when you have to do things the hard way. Hang on, let's chat. Let's try something. Invite people. No, it just.
You know what? I think I just figured out how to send it to myself. Just a sec. I'm going to use the Jux room on Discord.
Hey, I didn't think about that. I could do that. Do you need me to drop it there, or can you get to it?
No, I just did it. Now I'm just going to my Discord on my phone.
Hey, we got like 35 people hanging out on the stream right now.
Yeah, I saw that.
Welcome in, you crazy people. It doesn't usually sound quite this weird. My co-host is having
Right?
me on the phone tonight. You know, I finally get good equipment to match you sounding amazing, and now you don't have. It's just funny how that works, though. Let's see where we at. I may need to add a couple minutes. I forgot we're at top of the hour break anyway, so it's usually a little bit longer. Come on, get back up there. All right. Okay.
Okay. Trying to join the stream on my phone.
I see you.
All right, cool. I'm getting echo. What's in the call?
All right, cool. All right, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Hopefully it
Actually,
cleans up the audio a little bit.
Yeah, it actually has a little bit, because there's like noise cancellation and stuff built into this thing. So
Cool.
uh,
Excellent.
I need to go through and figure out how to configure the Bluetooth for when you're taking callers, because I know there's ways to make it sound better than it just did. But yeah, you do sound cleaner in my ears, so I'm figuring it's probably going to be better for everybody else too.
All right.
All right. So anyway, at this point, we are into the final part of the top of the hour break. So we got about 2 minutes and 40 seconds to the intro, of course, because I kind of feel like we need to let everybody hear it. I'll be bringing up the sounder in a second just so they can get the disclaimer, and then we'll go back, then we'll just roll straight into the intro.
Sounds good. And it was Jeff that gave me the idea to do this. He is super helpful.
He really is.
He really is.
But those of you listening on the stream, you can't tell him we said that.
Okay. And shit, if we got a couple minutes, I'm going to go get another beer. I'll be right back.
Cool.
Won't be long.
Oh, good. I can talk us back in anyway if I need to.
Okay. Second hour means second beer.
Oh, if I was thinking about it, I would have made a rum and coke, but I'm still learning all the new ins and outs, so I don't want to be trying to mess with all these new knobs and switches while inebriated. That would probably be bad.
Right.
All right. I got about 20 seconds. Going to go ahead and bring up the sound.
Okay.
And let us deal with the IRS while you focus on your business. That's 1-800-783-0810. Again, that's 800-783-0810.
The following program contains coarse language and adult themes. Listener discretion is advised.
What's that in the corner? It's too dark to see.
And welcome back into hour 2 of Juxtaposition, our every 2-week foray into the weird, the unusual, the unexplainable. I am Rick Robinson. He is already Packard, and we've upgraded slightly beyond 10 cans and string while you guys were on the break. So he's back with us sounding a little bit better than he did before. Welcome back, sir.
Yeah, no, I mean, we got the idea from Jeff to try and get the restream on my phone, and I couldn't get the app, and then we did things. We made magic happen. Now I'm on restream on my phone, and
Sounding
it works out better.
Sounding at least a little bit better. You're not coming through as muffled. You can still tell it's on a phone, but it's better than it was. So we will take it. We will run with it, and we will finish the show strong. But
it was kind of funny. Is that how I've been talking about for a few weeks now? I think my motherboard is slowly dying on my computer, and how I keep getting these audio problems. Well, I was going to talk myself out of getting a new one and say, I'll just wait for AM5s to become more stable and then upgrade that. And an article in PC World this week said, call AM4 chipset the chipset that won't die, as AMD just released 2 new processors for it. So that's why I just said, fuck it, I'm going to pull the trigger and get a new motherboard. So, and when I'm down for a while with the appendix surgery, I will be working on that.
Oh, yeah, I keep forgetting you've still got that going on, too.
Yeah, so I got that going on for me, which is nice. Get the fucking thing out of me. Jesus Christ.
All right. So before the break, I mean, if you're just joining us, and we have had some people kind of trickling into the streams as the show's gone on. So thank you so much for those of you that are checking us out over there. I do have to say something. We have actually started trying to stream to YouTube and Rumble more regularly. We've always kind of had show drops over there through Spreaker when they were done, but now we're actually streaming over there live. I just want to give a quick thank you to everybody who's been checking us out on YouTube and Rumble, because between the two of them right now, in the last 6 days, we've had over 2,000 hits. So thank you.
And you 37 weirdos over on Twitter. Thanks.
Yeah, I mean, you guys that are just checking us out, thank you so much. I mean, look, and I said this the other day when my afternoon show blew up, and at one point there was almost 200 people on it. I was like, I don't know if I've got you guys for 5 minutes or if I've made you fans for life, but just thank you for checking us out. So the thing about doing what we do is a lot of us do it because we love it. I mean, I've slowly turned it into a career. It's still in the infancy stages of being a career, but it does manage to pay my bills now. But a lot of the folks that you listen to on here, they do it because they love radio, and they do it because they love having this space. So if anything, just find a show that you like, even if it's not one of mine, follow along with them, interact with them, and show them some love, because a lot of people that do this do it because they love it, not because they're looking to get rich out of it. I'm not necessarily looking to get rich. I just want to be able to pay my bills. But anyway, but just wanted to say a quick thank you to everybody that may be checking us out for the first time, especially with shows like this, because we tend to get a little more traction lately on the non-political stuff because everybody's kind of burned out on the political stuff. I've noticed it's like when we do
Boy, are they.
when we do a non-political show, I'll go look and there's like 200, 300 hits in like 10 minutes. And then we do a political show and it's like, oh, you got 50 a week later. It's like everybody's just like, can we just not do this right now? Which is weird because normally this is when everything amps up, right? Because it's a few months from an election. But everybody's just like, yeah, whatever, dude, we're over it. But anyway.
And also, I just want to say, usually I'm a little more together and polished than I am tonight, but because usually I'm not the one who's having trouble. So I am thrown off. But I'm struggling through. Also, I'm making ball soup because it's hot as fuck in here.
You're always making ball
This
soup.
time of year, I'm always making ball soup. Yes.
This is on you, sir. You have the opportunity to live anywhere you would like, and you choose to live in the desert. So
Well, you know what? I'm a desert rat. Just if we didn't complain, everybody complains about the weather, but nobody's going to do anything about it.
don't give them any ideas.
So second hour, second beer, ready to go.
Yeah, I know. I mean, yeah, for those people that were listening on the streams, you heard him crack it. On the station side, you didn't, but that's because, anyway. All right. So, second hour. So we have been talking about Nibiru, Planet X, the Anunnaki. I kind of feel like we need to drill down a little bit more into the Anunnaki themselves and kind of, the fact that and we've kind of touched on this first hour, but the simple fact of the matter is, these people, if they exist, are probably what has done some really weird things happening that we're just now starting to understand, which was kind of the whole plot development behind the show Stargate, when they were like, why are there pyramids here?
Right.
But it's just, and we touched on this a little bit with the whole nuclear war thing with the Anunnaki before they left. But at the same time, and we've kind of touched on it in the beginning of the first hour, but to drill down a little bit more, there are so many things that are similar from half a planet away that make zero sense otherwise, unless there was some sort of overall arching influence. And with these Nephilim being all throughout early creation myths, creationist literature, whatever you want to call it, it just kind of seems like there may be a little bit of something there. And if you go into it a little bit further, and we talked about this earlier, it appears these people created us because they wanted a worker class, and they influenced a lot of cultures that were separated by distances, but they were able to do so because they had the ability to travel great distances. I mean, there are all kinds of theories if you start drilling down into all the stuff that Ancient Aliens has talked about and everybody else about how the pyramids were this, that, or the other. One of the most common things is the pyramids, whether they're the Egyptian pyramids or the ones in South America or Central America or wherever else you find pyramids. It's kind of like the whole, back in the day when almost every building in New York had a spot where you could anchor a blimp.
We got to bring those days back. That was fantastic. This was in Zachariah Sitchin's writings. He's actually delved deep into this, almost to the point that it was exhausting. It was kind of like the begats section of the Bible, where it's like, oh my God, does this ever fucking end? And but the spread out those who Anu left behind of the Anunnaki to rule the earth, as it were, set up their own little fiefdoms in Central America and Mesopotamia and Egypt and everywhere else. And interestingly, author Christian O'Brien, he suggested a connection between. See, it is believed that the biblical watchers in the Book of Enoch were the Anunnaki, and he's made a correlation to where the watchers, the sons of God, was the Tuath Day, the tribe of God, who is a race of entities who descended to earth on the sacred hill Tara in prehistoric Ireland. which also Tuatha has been translated as the people of Anu, as related to Danu, an Irish goddess. So again, we're coming back to even, proto-pagans in the Celtic culture had the same sort of names and myths.
Sorry, you were kind of cutting out on me a little bit, but I got most of that.
You lose me. You got most of it. That's all right. As long as the listeners got it.
But yeah, no, I mean, it's just so weird to me to think about, just all of the different, just cultural things that make really no sense unless there's some sort of underlying connection. Now, a lot of people will say, well, it could be, just like when we redeveloped technology and started moving around the planet, that we brought influences, and maybe that's what happened with it. And that is possible. I mean, there's the whole land bridge thing, and there's the whole theory that at one point all of the continents were connected and eventually they separated. So maybe that had something to do with it. But to me, yeah, but to me, it just still at that point, I mean, we're still talking about, I mean, for all we know, the Anunnaki were here when it was Pangea. I mean, we don't know exactly when they were here. We just know that according to the Sumerians, they were here. And if they've been here since we were created, because apparently they were, then how do we know they weren't here when it was Pangea? So maybe it didn't even necessarily have anything to do with their spaceflight ability. Maybe everything was just so interconnected that they had the ability to get there. But again, for me, the whole thing about all of this is not even necessarily what we knew back then. That floors me. And we talked about that first hour when we started sending space probes out and they started looking at all the Sumerian writings and everything else. And they were describing the outer planets of the solar system, including their colorations. And everyone was like, how did they know this? But I guess the weirdest thing for me is now that we have, I mean, first, the Hubble telescope first, but now the Webb telescope, we're finding that almost every solar system that we have the ability to see is a binary system. So
at least binary, trinary.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they have found a single sun system yet, really, because even the ones that originally they thought might have been, just regular, just single star systems, wound up being at least a binary. So one of the other interesting things regarding some of these theories that have come about with the Anunnaki and everything else is that there may even be another planet that we don't know anything about that could be also orbiting within our solar system, because we too have a secondary star, but that star is either a brown dwarf or is already burned out.
See, that's when we're going to have to do a show on Nemesis.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm testing something with the restream because we didn't have this trouble when we were on the phone, but I've heard that I go robot-y every now and then. I think that's when my screen is timing out. So I'm not going to let it time out and let me know if it improves things.
Yeah, I think that's it too. Because I've had other people be like, and it's usually when they're like changing between screens or their screens time out, it goes weird. So that's probably got. But
so,
all right. So, where do you want to go next?
Well, that's kind of interesting. So, while we're talking about the James Webb and Hubble and everything else, we have to talk about how we haven't found this planet yet. I mean, I know it's easier to peer out across the galaxy, across the universe, than it is to look in your own backyard when it comes to setting up telescopes. I mean, otherwise, we would have mapped most of the near-Earth asteroids. But, excuse me, fucking allergies. We have to figure out why we haven't found this planet and why all of a sudden people are starting to take interest in finding it. Because there's a whole lot of, after a couple of researchers at Caltech found evidence of it, and I talked about this in the first hour with, how it's, the orbital geometry isn't what they thought. They thought that it was following the same pattern that the rest of the planets were, maybe dipping a few degrees off of main. But when feeding it into simulations for the way that other planets are, planetoids are operating out there, you have to give it a really bizarre orbit in order for it to, and then all of a sudden everything, all the puzzle pieces fit, which makes me wonder, getting back to, was this a rogue planet?
Yeah, I mean,
and going with what they were talking about in chat with Pangeria and, the, life out there, life here began out there. And, you could even, and we didn't prepare for this, but you could even put in some of Richard C. Hoagland's theories that, with our circadian rhythms being more attuned to a Martian day than an Earth day, did the Anunnaki pick us up along the way and drop us here because Mars was dying or whatever? So, but yeah, so it's just, the progression through, the galaxy or whatever until it got caught up in our little backwater, and they just started, found the bright blue marble to start their mining production.
Again, it's just so weird to me to think about. Just, and I know we talked about this first hour, but I can't get this whole idea out of my head about, because it does go back to like children mimicking parents. This whole idea of gold becoming important to us because it was important to them, even though we didn't really even understand why until much, much later. And the whole, well, they did it to us, so we're going to do it to the people that we see as lesser. I mean, because the entire planet practiced slavery. The entire planet, at one time or another, was, I mean, other than I guess the natives at one point kind of outgrew it, but even they still found ways to barter. They were still they were a bartering culture. So I mean, they may not have been as into the metals and stuff as we were, but I don't know. To me, the whole concept of this just seems really, 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 really weird. But one of the things I would really like to do, and I didn't really do it for this one because I figured this would kind of just be more of a let's unpack it and then we'll come back around and do it again, is to talk about the technology that they must have had.
Yeah, I was thinking about it today too. As long as we've been doing this show, what are we, 5 years now?
Yeah.
This is the first time we've ever actually touched. I mean, we've touched on the Anunnaki. We've danced around the topic, but we've never just got in. Again, weird that you and I got the same idea at the same time. You know what? We haven't done Nibiru Planet X. Let's do that. Or, let's just do it. And then it occurred to me we hadn't done this topic before.
Well, I mean, the thing about it is, it's just one of those things to where it's kind of a 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon kind of thing, because it's sort of attached to a lot of different shows that we've done, but we've never actually just gone in and done it. And it was, like you said, it was weird that we kind of had the same thought at the same time. But I think that was one of the reasons why it never really occurred to me. I mean, I think we had talked about it once upon a time, and then other things came up and we just never came back around to it. And then there were a couple times I thought about it and I was like, well, that's pretty close to what we just did a couple of months ago, so we'll probably wait. And then I don't know, the one for me that I'm still wanting to desperately get done, and hopefully now that Mickey's wedded, maybe his life will start being a little less hectic. I really still want to do the whole we're living in a simulation one. That would
we're gonna get a little cats too.
Yeah.
I told Jeff about it. I talked to Mickey about it last week. So we'll try and shoot for 2 weeks if we can get cats too, and maybe even Al. That'd be fantastic.
Hopefully Al's back by then. I think he's on a cruise right now.
He is on a cruise right now. That's why he's not in chat.
So I don't know how long the cruise is. I know he's on one, but I didn't really pay attention to how he got. But I know he's gone.
So getting back to where this planet is. Now, they've really narrowed it down to, out of all the possibilities and the effect on the Plutoids and Kuiper Belt objects and everything else to lead to it could be in this area. They've scanned 78% of that area, 80% of the area now. and they're narrowing it down to if it's kind of the thing, if it's not here, if it's nowhere. So and they're using the Legacy Survey of Space and Time telescopes on a 10-year program to study the southern sky where this thing could possibly be. And so again, it's one of those things is within a decade, within definitely most of our lifetimes, we can find out if this thing is actually real. It'll no longer be speculation. It's either all of our models are wrong and all of our theories are wrong, which is science. That happens. I mean, look at the IPCC. Or it's not there. So while I'm saying this is they're scanning the most likely spots. That doesn't mean it's the only spots, but they've got most of that area mapped out now. Which again, interesting that they can map out most of the section of a Kuiper belt and still not know where most of the Earth crossing asteroids are. But let's not dwell.
Yeah, well, I mean, to me, I understand exactly what you're saying, but to me, it makes about as much sense as us being able to map most of that belt, but still having no idea what is in our oceans for the most part.
Right.
So I think it has more to do with interest and
Except for
funding.
Red Route 1, they've got hyper accurate sonar readings of that fucker.
But yeah, I think a lot of it.
Overposting.
Yeah. I almost went into Nepistephikoia, but I decided not to.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, I interrupted.
No. But yeah, I just lost my train of thought though. It happens. But anyway, but yeah, no, it's just back to what we were talking about. It's not that it's weird, but it's not that uncommon because it just depends on who's got the money and who's willing to fund it, because we know more about space than we knew about our own ocean, which to me has always seemed kind of weird. That was one of the first shows that I ever really saw that tried to tackle that really, other than Jacques Cousteau and everything else on a sci-fi basis anyway, was Sequest, and I absolutely love that show. A lot of people thought it was kind of dry in the beginning. I didn't. I love the fact that we were, at least trying to speculate as to what life would be like when we decided that we were gonna, start colonizing the ocean. And then it went weird, like most sci-fi shows do. But to me, that's always fascinated me because
I think it was the dolphin that turned everybody off, but you just kind of, and the kid. But at its core, it was a good show.
Well, I mean, the dolphin was just, kind of trying to do something different, kind of like with, Spock and then Data and Next Generation. And then, of course, that was also around the same time. So, of course, there had to be a plucky teenage genius because that worked so well for Star Trek.
I'm Doogie Howser.
Yeah. Challenge accepted. Right.
Yeah. And one of the pieces from our article, we did for the show. One of the interesting quotes in this, and this is from a researcher, Konstantin Batyin, who was one of the two researchers at Caltech who have mathematically narrowed down to where it's at. And his quote was, "For the first time in over 150 years, there is solid evidence that our solar system's planetary census is incomplete."
Well,
think about that. For 150 years, we figured we knew it all.
Yeah. And now we've realized we probably don't.
Yeah.
But it's funny that you brought this up because this ties into something else that I was trying to figure out how to segue into that we will probably talk about after the break. And that is the fact that according to the Sumerians, there are more planets in our solar system than we're aware of, which is interesting that he just said that.
Well, yeah, that's because Nibiru is referred to as the 12th planet.
Yeah. But yeah, sorry, I was trying to get us queued up to go to a break and everything's being stupid.
It's our lot in life tonight.
It's just how it's going to be. So you know what? We're going to go old school and load a bumper from the files.
Is it going to be Imagine Dragons? It's gonna be that.
No, it's not. I thought about it, but no.
Yeah, I'm getting good feedback on the 2-hour format too. So again, thank you, Delaney.
Although you're not going to really like this one much better either.
Probably not.
But it's not Imagine Dragons. I need to actually get some of your stuff cut down now that it's going to be a little harder
Not
for
Iggy
you.
Pop, it's shit.
Actually, I have that one. I guess I could have went with that one, but maybe we'll do that one on the way back in. But we are going to take a break. We are at the bottom of the hour for hour 2, so we've got one more segment coming at you on the other side of the break while we wrap things up and then maybe get into what we've been watching at the very end like we normally do. But hope you guys are enjoying the show, enjoying the new format. For those of you checking us out on the stream, I promise it's not usually quite this chaotic, but I can't promise it's not chaotic at all because it's live radio. It's kind of what we do. Anyway,
We're doing it live.
so we'll be back on the other side of the break. For those of you hanging out on the streams, you'll hear a little bit of it in the beginning and the end. For those of you on the radio, we got to play it. Don't hate me. Bye, guys. Be right back.
Sitting next to you, you think you're gonna get it sitting next to you. But after all I've said, please don't forget.
You are listening to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign.
All right. I gave him a
Okay.
station. That works well enough.
I'll be back in a second.
Sure. All right. So for those of you hanging out on the stream, we're just going to camp out for a second. I'm going to load up some, I guess, passenger. Come back from the break since that's what he asked for. Do.
And back.
Welcome
Oh,
back.
that was loud. I heard myself back in my own ear.
That's how you know you're deaf.
Why did I engage these 20 follower notifications?
Because it's fun.
Yeah, I figured I'd just use them as an educational tool.
It's kind of like that low follower account that you were messing with the other night that I made my chew toy and then
Oh, yeah.
he came back into my feed to prove to me that he wasn't with me, even though I didn't tag him in the post where I was talking about him DMing me. I was like,
Yeah.
thanks for proving my point, dude.
Dude, he was stalking my feed all over the place. I couldn't reply to anybody without him jumping in and commenting on something. Which, by the way, I don't know if you saw my explanation in chat last night of why I deleted that post.
No, I did.
Okay.
I saw that you basically told me the same thing
Yeah.
on TL, but
It was like, wow, something's too crass for you. I said, yeah, talking about money is too crass. Ooh, I need to steal that meme.
it is not stealing, it is meme reappropriation.
Yeah, this is definitely a topic. I like when Steven joins us in the chat too, because especially when we dance around this topic, because he's really knowledgeable. If you'd be interested, I'd love to get him on the show sometime for this.
Yeah.
But chat, this topic has kept chat focused pretty well.
Yeah, there hasn't been any of the they're off on their own tangent.
Yeah.
Which is sometimes just as fun, if I'm being honest, because sometimes they have actually, some of the times when the chat gets really hopping, and I've noticed it, they have changed the entire direction of a show. I'll just start going
They
on.
have. We derailed the fucking topic, and that was only when we were an hour, and it was easy to do.
Oh,
Reining myself back in too. That's new for this format.
all right, here we go.
Okay.
Adult themes. Listener discretion is advised.
I am the passenger, and I ride through the city backsides.
So a thought just occurred to me listening to this song coming back from the break. Welcome back in, ladies and gentlemen, by the way. You're listening to Juxtaposition live right here on KLR Radio. What if the Anunnaki were the original Ubers?
I mean, kind of. You know, it was a throwback, something I haven't been able to do since I got my headphones that aren't working tonight. Back in the dark times, when I just finally decided I was going to, get more serious and invest some money in this, when I was still using gaming headsets, I was able to do some chair spinning when you started playing the passenger. I haven't, spun in the chair in several years. It felt good. Now I'm going to have to figure out a good wireless solution for headsets so I can bring that back.
Yeah, that's actually one of the things that I have kind of been trying to figure out myself, but I think with this board having Bluetooth capability, I think I might be able to do something eventually about that, because I know it will support lavalier mics and things like that too. So I think it will also support like earbuds instead of. So with us starting,
one of the downsides of the Focusrite Scarlett that I bought, basically for the mic, it does not have Bluetooth capabilities, so that's a shame. But
yeah. And trust me, they are not a sponsor, but since we haven't gotten back into anything yet, if you guys are listening and you do anything like this and you're looking to upgrade equipment, I strongly encourage that you visit Sweetwater, because I shopped around for weeks before I pulled the trigger, because I knew what I was buying. I didn't know exactly what I was buying yet. I mean, I had a general idea. I was kind of torn between the Rodecaster Pro 2 and the Rodecaster Duo, which is basically a smaller version of the same kind of thing. But everywhere else that I looked, they wanted me to buy an individual warranty for each piece that I bought through them. Which, even if I had downgraded to the Rodecaster Duo, which I'm honestly kind of glad that I didn't, because now when we do conventions and stuff, I'll have enough for 4 microphones, which will be amazing. And I've never had that capability before. I've always had to borrow somebody else's equipment. That's another reason why I did this. But one of the things that was a selling point for me with Sweetwater was, by the time they priced everything out, and by the time I went to pay for everything, they had a 2-year warranty baked in. So by the time I would have gone anywhere else and paid for the individual warranty for the microphone, the mic stand, the headphones, the cables, the board itself, I would have spent an additional $250. So,
yeah, I was a fan of Sweetwater. I moved my, for future podcasting equipment, I moved my wish list from Amazon over to them. I do like a lot. I mean, I was kind of kicking myself that I bought the Scarlett, the Focusrite Scarlett on Amazon instead of Sweetwater, because the deal was just that, like you said, not just the warranty, but the deal was that much better.
well, and the other thing is, because when I was looking before, I was looking at getting, and it's not a bad mic. There's a Rode Pod mic that usually sells for about $99, but the difference is, if you're going to use that one, even with this board, you basically have to be right in front of it for it to sound anything like it's supposed to. But then there's the Shure SM7B, which is an absolutely amazing microphone, which is usually $400. So I was able to upgrade the mic and get the Shure SM7B for what it would have cost me to get this board with a lesser mic anywhere else because of the cost of the warranties. I spent an extra $100 and got a $400 mic.
Nice.
I'm just saying. I mean, I usually do try to promote people, even if they're not sponsors, that I wholeheartedly support. And the other thing that I absolutely loved about Sweetwater is within like 5 minutes of me placing the order, they were calling me and emailing me wanting to know if I had any other questions, if I thought I was going to need help setting it up, and letting me know that they had a complete white glove service when it came to that, and if I got stuck to call them. That's the kind of customer service you don't really see anymore. Anyways, that was a very long Sweetwater commercial, but I promise it was.
Yeah, we got to get them on the sponsor board.
But yeah, so I've been tagging them a lot lately. I'm hoping eventually they're like, hey. Anyway, so I mean, we are kind of coming towards the end of the topic. We've got about 19 minutes left. We've covered a lot of it. I know. I mean, there's still some meat left on the bone, but like I said, this was kind of just the episode where we were gonna kind of crack the beer, so to speak, get everybody used to the topic, get everybody used to the fact that we're now doing a longer format show, and just kind of have some fun. Even though we've done most of it with the 21st century version of Tin Can and String, because technology hates us. But so, any other hits you want to make on the way out with the notes that you have?
Once again, I just wanted to talk again. There's 3 names, without getting into before. Now, we can't really say before because some of it was concurrent with the Ancient Aliens thing. But the real 3 names who have been tied to this, and we talked a little bit about Nancy Leader. We talked a little bit more about Zachariah Sitchin, and the one who has absolutely polluted the waters, and he was another regular on Coast to Coast AM. And that's David Icke. And where he's completely polluted the waters on this one. And again, we talk about this often. If you listen to the show, we'll talk about how a lot of the topics we try to do, the research is painstaking because you have to filter through all of the Hollywood productions of, whether it's Mothman. When we tried to do the Mothman is, part of our cryptid thing. It was all about the movie. You had to go pages to start finding, legitimate myths about the Mothman. And in this one, not only is, your various movies about the Anunnaki and Nibiru and stuff like that too. Like I mentioned, Battlefield Earth. You have David Icke out there with the Anunnaki were reptilians.
Yeah.
If everything's a reptilian, nothing's a reptilian, and that is his bread and butter. That is, again, it was interesting back in the day when he would be talking about, Hillary Clinton and Obama and the Bushes and then, but it's like anything, it again revitalizes it in 2017 because nobody's listening to him anymore with the Anunnaki were reptilians. And another one you've got in here is David Mead, who's a Christian numerologist. And he was also, I think he was a regular on George Norrie for a while. But it's just, this horse has been beat to death. Stop trying to add on to it. The legend of the lore and all the material is interesting enough without you putting your pet project into it in order to gain relevance. Nancy Leader has turned doomsday culting into a cash cow. I always talk about, the great thing about doomsday cults is that if you're going to run a successful one, then you make the event far enough out where you can maximize your grift rather than constantly having to redo it. she tied it into the Mayan long count calendar, and then she tied it into Hail Bob, tied it into Hail Bob, and then she tied it into the Mayan calendar. Then let's see, there was just some random event that it was going to occur on May 27th, 2003. For some reason, that date was, relevant. And what I found interesting was that while she was pushing the topic, she really tried to jump on Zachariah Sitchin's coattails. And Sitchin actually said, no. And, he died in 2010. But in 2027, leader proclaimed that they were kind of working together on it. And he actually wrote a whole book, End of Days, where he set the time of the passing of Nibiru. The last time was around, according to him, 556 BC, which means that it wouldn't even be coming around again until like 2900. Just to throw her off. I mean, he may have actually believed that those were the dates, but that was you're not riding my coattails with your constant doomsday every few years down the road. I'm putting it so far out that none of us are going to see it in our lifetime.
Well, not to change topics on a dime, but just a quick hit on this. I kind of feel like this is where the climate grift got it wrong, because they tried to do, the whole 10-year thing. But, another quick hit, because we talked about this a little bit before the break, is the fact that the Sumerians actually outlined 12 planets. Now, according to the chat, they believe that it had something to do with them counting the sun and the moon as planets.
That's correct.
That is one explanation, but I've also heard another one, and that is the theory that Mars itself actually wasn't a planet. That it was actually a moon of a much larger planet known as Planet V that exploded, and eventually Mars broke free of its orbit, and that's where the asteroid belts came from.
Right.
So, but that's also where the theory of Pluto and its moon, apparently, according to a theory, may have actually been moons of Neptune, and Pluto broke free and took one of Neptune's smaller moons with it. And I think that's
I'm going home and taking my ball with me.
I think that's actually where Neil deGrasse Tyson came up with the idea of, well, since it may have come from being a moon with Neptune, I think we're going to downgrade it to a moon again.
Yeah,
Whatever.
Tyson gets directly blamed for that. It was actually another theory. It was another astrophysicist who came up with a theory, but he banged that gong so hard that no, you're saddled with it now, Neil.
He banged that gong harder than you bang Mom's buying Circle K.
Right.
I had to do it.
Ooh, we got the rim shot on the board again.
Yeah. Well, actually, I have a completely configurable board now. I have to figure out what I'm going to do with it. Because I can actually set up completely different show profiles for each show. I can actually program up to 6. So I think the ones that I do most often, I'm fixing to just set all their sounders and bumpers and everything on the board, so I don't have to keep loading things independently. Getting things figured out as I go, though. That's one of the things I do love about this new toy.
Yeah, that's awesome. So now we've reached the part of the show which we usually do on Wednesdays, but since I had back-to-back 4 a.m. start times this week, it's like when I was working harder, I was actually doing more podcasts than I'm doing now, but still, the last few weeks have just been, I had to bounce off of Manorama and us on Wednesday night. So to ask the Wednesday night question on a Saturday, what are you watching?
Well, I was watching the Acolyte on Disney Plus, and have already decided I won't be watching that again. I did.
We talk about it on Culture Shift often. The Disney method now.
It's
do something incredibly stupid, say stupid things, then blame racism and sexism when nobody's watching your show. Well, we did it to piss white people off. Okay, well then I don't need to watch it. Why aren't you watching our show, racist?
Well, the whole thing about this is it actually is a decent premise, but they screwed it up. It's not a bad premise. The show itself, if not for all their bullshit, might not have been so bad, but they just had to go and completely screw it up. Another one that I have to admit that I've been watching that I'm actually kind of sad it's over now, and I talked about this a little bit with Aggie a couple weeks or week or so ago. Last time she was able to be on because she wasn't on last Friday. Is Discovery because Discovery wrapped after season 5. I will say that it at least got a better send off than Enterprise, and it was also pretty surprisingly canceled because nobody really expected it to be canceled. But they did manage to work in a good send off for it, including, if you haven't watched it yet, an Easter egg tying all the way back to Enterprise, which I thought was pretty cool. But one of the things that occurred to me is I think part of what's making some of these shows suck as hard as they do is the shorter season format because it's something that we've talked about before. Star Trek: The Next Generation, if it was being done the way shows are being done today, would have never seen the light of day past what would have counted as their season 2 because if a season's only 10 episodes long, it took that show almost 50 episodes to find its feet.
Right. No, I totally. I mean, because it's like we were talking about Fallout. Fallout was a great series. Yeah, short season, and the other problem with it too is that you're not going to see season 2 until like 2026, I think. So that's fallen off of most people's radar. And this used to be the show killer. I mean, we used to talk about what used to kill a show by moving from one night to another, but now that anybody can binge whenever they want, yeah, I get it. Nobody wants to commit to 26 episodes anymore. But, I mean, very few shows have been able to get the traction. Even Sherlock Holmes on BBC with Benedict Cumberbatch or whatever.
Cumberbatch.
They were only, what, 6 episodes?
Yeah.
But they were designed to be that. They weren't, it's because each season where they came back, it was like, oh, are we going to do another season? Should we do another season? Are we just going to leave that in the can and call it wasn't like Torchwood or Doctor Who or Star Trek or anything else where it's like, okay, so we're going to run this show as long as we can make money off of it. So, I mean, I kind of blame maybe that Sherlock Holmes that may have opened the door to, hey, popular series can do this. But when you have a show like Sherlock Holmes or most of your crime procedurals or whatever, ramping up production for another season doesn't take long. And that's why, I made the comment earlier, sci-fi costs money. What kills most sci-fi shows is it's too expensive to make, or it was prior to, now with, Babylon 5 was, I mean, while they had fantastic sets, a lot of their space stuff was pretty cheap, and it showed. But the show still holds, not as much as, say, Deep Space Nine, which was contemporary, because the special effects look just as good today as it did 30 years ago. But yeah, I think that's, if you're going to invest in a sci-fi show, you have to give the fans more than what you're going to give them. You have to spend the money. You have to take that risk.
Well, and the other thing is, and this is something that just pisses me off to no end, is we've got, and I know it's been part of Hollywood for the longest time, but they go through this thing and they put this pilot together, and then they don't know what they're going to do with it if the pilot takes off. I am a firm believer, and this is just me, and this is, after doing live radio for as long as I've done it and all the other things, I'm a firm believer that if you are going to ask people to invest their time and energy into something that you're trying to sell, that you should be pitching an entire arc of shows, not just here's the pilot, but here's the pilot and this is what we're going to do after it. And if you're going to pick this up, then I want it contractually stated that this show will run until we have done this entire arc. And then if you guys want to come back and keep going, if it's done well enough, then we can talk about that. And that's kind of what Kripke did a lot. He would not just pitch a pilot. He would pitch like an entire, this is the arc that we're going to use.
Right.
And you're either going to run the entire thing or you're not. And that's what made Supernatural as successful as it was, because for the longest time it had a show Bible. They knew where they were going from season to season. And you can see when the Bible ended and they were just like, oh, we're not letting go of this cash cow. because then everything just kind of went, what the hell did you just do?
Well, I mean, I mentioned before Babylon 5. That was another thing with Babylon 5 too. Is Straczynski wrote that as 4-season arc. That was it.
Yeah.
And then the 5th season, which we always, I'm going to say joke about it, but we're deadly fucking serious. The 5th season doesn't exist, and neither do the movies. So, okay, one of the movies was good. But,
well, the first movie was technically the pilot, so you
right. Okay, but not that one. No, not the one that had, was it Christine Yamaguchi instead of Claudia Christian? Yeah. So, yeah. The what was that? The Gathering of the, anyway. Yeah, so that was good, and then there was another one, too, that went back before Marcus was killed, and so, yeah.
I don't think I'm going to see if I have to see if I can find that one. I don't think I've seen that one, but because I remember the pilot movie, and I remember seasons 1 through 4, and I never heard that there wasn't really supposed to be a season 5, but I kind of suspected because the very last episode of season 4 was the perfect way to end the show.
That would have been an excellent series finale. It casts out 10,000 years into the future,
yes,
with all the ramifications of the Shadow War. Good and bad. And yeah, that was a fantastic series. That was the Bob Newhart waking up in bed from the Newhart, and it was all a dream thing. That was that level of good.
And then they were like, "Oh, we can still make money off of this." And that's another thing that honestly really kind of pisses me off. If somebody pitches you a show, especially if they take the time to pitch you a show that has an arc, and they have a vision for that show. Once you buy it, just run the show. And then if you want to come back to them and say, hey, we want to keep running it, if they say no, then just let it end. Because sometimes it's like Supernatural. Supernatural was an amazing show. Once the Bible arc ended, though, it was like they started all over, and it took them another 3 or 4 seasons to kind of find their feet again. Then they got decent again for a while, and then it died. But it's had such a a cult classic following that now they're talking about bringing it back. But I think that's really because Jensen Ackles hasn't really been able to find anything to do since it died.
Right.
I mean, his
when you got a 22 season show, 2 years that you run.
Yeah, it was about 22.
Yeah, you're pretty much you are locked in as sidecast with that. Well, you no longer have an identity. You are your character. You might as well just start hunting fucking demons.
Well, I mean, his co-star tried. I mean, because as that one was ending, and they had already taped the finale and everything. Jensen Ackles tried to do the reboot of Walker, and of course, they completely fucked that show up. Because it was nothing like the original. I mean, he was like completely emasculated half the time. The female lead character was the one doing all the heavy lifting, and I'm just like,
she's the bestest ever.
I'm like, look, dude, I get it. You're trying to make things, but this is getting into this, and I know this is usually you and Brad's bailiwick, but this is something that I think they may finally start being able to see, other than Disney. Is even women don't want these shows with these heavily female empowerment bullshit. I mean, that's like the most recent Mad Max movie, Furiosa. Nobody went to watch it. Not even women went to watch it.
I forgot it was a thing.
Because they don't want it. I mean, but that's
this. Did anybody ask for this?
Dude, I think one of the first ever tweets that I saw from you was because it was right around the time that you and Foo were starting to hook up about you coming on the Foo Bar and stuff, because I think that was about when you got put on my radar all those years ago. Was one of those, it was about a reboot or something, and you're like, did we want this? Did anybody ask for this? I was like, okay, I kind of like this guy.
Right.
But anyway, so believe it or not, my dude, that's 2 hours.
You haven't asked me what I'm watching. I know about you, Rick.
I know, but I was just letting you know we've actually already hit the 2 hour mark.
No, that's amazing.
Mister, I don't think we have enough material.
No, every time I say that, we still have material left over. So Yeah,
But
that's kind of like that's break a leg for the show. Every time I say we don't have enough material, and when we do have enough material, we get through it so fast. We're just sitting here like twiddling our thumbs for the last 10 minutes.
It's like, how the hell did we get through 14 pages of material that fast? I don't know.
Right.
But anyway, so what are you watching? I was just letting you know we actually crossed the threshold, sir.
Well, what's funny is that it was part of the conversation on Twitter the other day when I was absolutely gobsmacked that Vincent Charles hasn't seen Warehouse 13. It's been a couple of years, so I fired it up again and I'm watching it. One of the things that occurred to me, I'm in season 2, is like I remember the episode where Erica Sarah and Nal Mather, who were a couple on Eureka, that was Joe and Donovan. I remember that they were also, I don't think they were a real couple, but they also played a couple on Warehouse 13 long before, but not as those characters. They were just, random characters. Well, blew me, I totally forgot about it. I was watching an episode last night, and you had Kaylee and Simon Tam were a couple in an episode. Obviously not as their characters. He was just this meek, mild-mannered, guy who was in love with the chick who owned the coffee shop, but he found some artifact where he was out fighting crime like a super badass. So, it was kind of like because she was doing this neighborhood watch thing, so he was doing it to impress her. They were kind of a couple, but he was, kind of low key, and so it blew me away. It was like, wow, okay, so there's, Kaylee and Simon together outside of the Firefly universe, which I thought was interesting. So yeah, I'm watching Warehouse 13 again. It's just such a good show. It's just such a fun. You got your overall seasonal arcs, but it's still episodic. It's kind of like how DS9 was before the last 2 seasons when they went balls deep into the Dominion War.
Yeah.
Where it's like everything was related to the Dominion War, but it wasn't the focus of every episode. And that's kind of how. I mean, I know you like nearly pure episodic, maybe with an occasional season arc. I like a little bit more of a long story, and that's why Warehouse 13 and Eureka, they just kind of, I love both those shows for that. The other thing with Warehouse 13 too is the constant rotation of the big bad, but every big bad was brought on by the actions of the previous big bad. So there was a continuity on the overall arc as well. Like how Daredevil did with all of the mini bosses were just working for the big boss. So,
well, it's not necessarily that it's not that I mind the continuity. I hate when they make the continuity obvious. Like
when you can't miss an episode.
Yeah, with Warehouse 13, there's this continuity, but if you missed an episode, it didn't necessarily throw you off. One of the things that drove me crazy about Enterprise back in the day, because it was about the same. I mean, that was DVR was really just becoming prominent, etc. Was that there were seasons where if you missed an episode, you were lost, and I hated that. I don't mind it now. I've actually gone back and rewatched Enterprise, and again, I don't know if it's because just the first season of Discovery sucked that bad or what, but I've gone back and rewatched Enterprise, and I actually enjoy it now. I've rewatched it now 2 or 3 different times. And there are things that I've been able to get past. Like one of the things that really pissed me off about that show in the beginning was this was the time frame, like as according to the original timeline, that the entire Romulan War was fought by subspace radio. It's why they never knew what they looked like.
Right.
That was their explanation because they didn't have view screens, etc. Now, Enterprise did later manage to kind of explain that away, because even though we could see the Romulans on screen in the few episodes that they were in, they never actually got to see them. But it still threw a wrench in the whole thing of the original episode where we got to see that the Vulcans and the Romulans were cousins. And oddly enough, the Romulan commander was played by Mark Leonard, who actually is also playing Spock's father. But that was the whole point of it is, well, how did we not know that they looked like them? Because we never saw their faces, because the entire Romulan War was fought at a time when we didn't have view screens. And then Enterprise kind of took that and said, just kidding. And that honestly was one of the things that kind of really irritated me at first. But to me, that's kind of fandom taking things too far. And I think I've kind of come off of that a little bit, because I've had to go back and remember that, the entire point of Star Trek really was the continuity that got built along the way. because there were issues with the original series to where episodes were shot in a certain sequence but released out of sequence because production was finished faster and they needed to get something out. And I mean, then there's the fact that, the entire episode where Kirk was split in two only happened because they hadn't built the shuttlecraft yet for the set. So they couldn't send a shuttlecraft down to rescue people, etc. But I don't know. It's just all these little things that really, really pissed me off during Enterprise, and maybe it's just because they've tried to screw Star Trek up so much that I just don't care about that anymore. It seems more enjoyable, but also because I can just go watch it whenever I want. If there's an episode, and I've still come across episodes that I didn't remember seeing. So there's that. But did your phone die on me? Because you got really quiet. Yep, I think Ordy's phone died, folks. So I think we're done. On that note, now that I have waxed poetic about Star Trek, Star Wars, and everything in between, I'm pretty sure his phone died. So we're going to get out of here. Thanks so much, everybody, for joining us. We'll be back in 2 weeks doing this again. I'll be back tomorrow night doing America Off the Rails. Don't forget, I am off Monday, so there will be no Rick Robinson show. Wait, he's back. I thought your phone died.
No.
Anyway, I was wrapping up. I was like, I think his phone died.
No, I didn't have my screen, and apparently it disconnected me from the room. Anyway, where were we?
Yeah, I was actually in the middle of wrapping us up because I didn't know what happened to you.
So, hey, where can people find you?
Actually, I was kind of going through that, so I'll be back tomorrow night doing America Off the Rails. I'm off Monday. It's my one day off of the month, so I'll be back Tuesday afternoon doing the Rick Robinson show. That's Tuesday through Friday this next week, 3 p.m., 5 p.m. Eastern. And Tuesday night, I'll be producing for the Cocktail Lounge. Wednesday night, full boat, so whatever, 7 p.m. Eastern. I produce that one and co-host with Stacey Lennox. Then we have the Conservative Curmudgeon Radio Show. I produce for that one, and G takes the reins. That's at 8 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Eastern. This week is Talk Murder to Me. That is hosted by Bumpstock Barbie and Bumpstock Ken, and I produce for them. And then 10 p.m., unless he has an early work day, should be me and this guy doing the Rick and Orty show. And then Thursday, doing Jen and Rick, 10 p.m. Eastern. And then Friday, doing He Said, She Said with Aggie Regan. And then off Saturday night because it's an off week for us. When I'm not doing all that, you can find me on as a contributor on Twitchy, theloftusparty.com, misfitspolitics.com, and as the executive producer of the Loftus Party podcast, which usually drops on Tuesdays. Other than that, you can find me on social media. Where can folks find you now that I'm out of breath?
Hang on. Sorry, I had to mute for a couple. Let's see. You can find me as Ordnance Packard on Twitter, the longest time I've had an account ever. Thank you, St. Elon of Tesla. You can find me Tuesday night, most likely on Rancor Steve's Manorama show on Rumble. You can find me Wednesday night with you on Rick and Orty if I don't have an early start for a change. This Thursday, you can find me on the Culture Sift with entertainment writer Brad Slager. And then I'm off the rest of the week. But I also want to mention, don't forget Spirited Books Monday night with Jeff and Aggie Regan at 8:30 Eastern.
Yeah, they're the reason I get a night off because Jeff produced that show. So thank you, Jeff. All right, that's going to do it for us. We're going to get out of here. You guys enjoy the rest of your Saturday night. And actually, oh yeah, you already mentioned Twitter. Never mind, you mentioned that first. I was confused.
Yeah,
anyway.
Let's start with that.
By the way, thanks everybody, because we had quite a few people in the chat and a lot of folks hanging out in the streams. So hope you didn't hate us too much. But if you did, we'll get over it.
Yeah.
Bye, everybody.
Hail Hydra.
No hailing of the Hydra. We've had this discussion.
I do what I want.